I want to first express my gratitude to the organizers, especially Lola and your team, for extending me the invitation to come here and speak. It's a great privilege and honor for me to be able to address this distinguished audience. I also want to thank Bishop Mbatia from Kenya for celebrating Mass this morning. It was the perfect way to begin the day, and I'm honored to be able to meet you as well. President Kast, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, I made the drive yesterday from Zagreb, just 3 hours, and feel very fortunate and safe to be in Hungary speaking about these topics. I want to express also my admiration to the Hungarian government for leading by example. Many people are watching around the world what is happening here in your country, and we are inspired in neighboring Croatia by your success. So I would just encourage you to keep the fight. I want to originally, as part of my introduction, just to make a few basic points and then tell a story about what happened several years ago in Croatia that could perhaps spark your imagination. So back to basics. I would say, first of all, that the family as the central unit of every society precedes the government and independently exists of the government. So the government basically should recognize this fact and extend protection to the nuclear family, as Hungary is doing. Unfortunately, that's become a controversial point today in many countries, including Croatia. We joined the European Union in 2013, the last member to join, and most of this ideological pressure, Pope Francis uses the term ideological colonization. It really, I think, is a good term. These pressures are coming mostly from Brussels and also from various actors in civil society who have been able to, in an artificial way, create a parallel world where these NGOs have very little support among the population, but they are very visible in the media, have allies, and are very loud in promoting, I would say, an anti-human agenda. So that's what we're dealing with. It's the same pattern in many of our countries. Something that classical liberals and libertarians often forget is that strong families and a strong marriage culture is absolutely vital to keeping government limited. Wherever the marriage culture weakens and the family declines, we have a growth in government. So I think this argument has been lost by many people who have been allies of ours in the past, and we have to make this point repeatedly, that in order to keep government small and its interference in our lives reduced, it's necessary to have strong families. It's that simple. If the family structure collapses, someone must fill the void, and it's usually the government, and it doesn't do a very good job. We see this in many places, including the United States. My background, personally, I did grow up in the United States. I live in Croatia now, and I'm a member of parliament. So this title, Transatlantic Summit, I feel very comfortable with this. I know quite a lot about both sides of the Atlantic, and I think it's important to meet at events like this and exchange experiences and how to move further. It's important to strategize. The left is very good at this. They're always, so to speak, ahead of the curve, and we're always seemingly playing defense. And I would say one more thing before I tell this story about Croatia. It's that politics is downstream from culture. So in the end, it's culture which really determines the fate of every nation. And I say this as a member of parliament. I'm in politics now on a daily basis, but culture is really what matters most. And we should keep this in mind. We should not yield an inch to the left on these questions, these central questions. What is the human person? What is the family? What is moral and what isn't? We should not yield to the left, because the truth, frankly, is on our side. And if they are so willing to be dedicated to their cause, we, on our side, should be even stronger in defending what matters most. We're fighting for our children. That's really what matters most in the end. So that's just something to keep in mind. And because culture is important and most important, it is there's a sign of hope in Croatia. For example, the March for Life is growing every year in more and more cities. I attended just 10 days ago the March for Life in Zagreb. It was a huge event. I was one of the older participants. Most of them are under 30, so they're very young, and it's growing. And the media is simply having to recognize this. In the beginning, several years ago, when this was something new and unseen in Croatia, the media was trying to bully us and portray this as something very controversial, very negative. That has more or less stopped. So now it's just simply recognized as a natural gathering of people who believe in the sanctity of life from conception to natural death. And this is a lesson that if we persevere and work together and continue in making our voices heard, the world around us will adapt. They can't help but adapt. They may not like it, they may still be hostile, but they will learn to adapt, just like the European Union has to adapt to Viktor Orban and his policies here in Hungary. They may not like it, but it's, I think, clear to everyone that his government has the support of the people and is here to stay, and we can learn from his example. So my story, just briefly, is about a marriage referendum that took place in Croatia in 2013. My friend and colleague Ladislav Ilčić, who's here in the audience, knows a lot about this initiative. He was involved from the very beginning. And the story is quite simple. There wasn't a lot of money behind this initiative. In the beginning, there weren't very many people involved. It was a very small group of dedicated, I would say, Catholics who were worried about what was coming to Croatia from abroad. And we were meeting regularly, discussing, what to do. And the idea emerged that we should try to organize a massive grassroots initiative and define marriage as a union between one man and one woman in the Croatian constitution. We had a hostile government at the time, no allies in the media, very little money. We did have the support of the Catholic Church and many youth groups who were very enthusiastic to get involved. So as soon as you give, especially young people, a cause and something concrete that they can recognize as important, they will react. And the initiative, just to summarize, was a great success, and I would say, in a way, a preemptive strike against the left, against the LGBT agenda, which has already arrived in Croatia. But we were able to change the narrative. This was not expected by people, to have a massive national vote. In the end, it was 67% for marriage, and now it's in the Constitution. So whether the left likes it or not, the Constitution of Croatia has marriage defined. And we were able to do this in the same year that Croatia joined the European Union. Many people were paying attention. I was surprised the next day to get a call from the New York Times. The reporter wasn't very pleased, but he asked for my comment. And so it's a sign that it matters. What you do can really make a difference. And a small country like Croatia, I think, has shown that it is possible. It is possible to move the debate in our direction, and even to surprise our opponents. Very few people were predicting something like this. And it's made defending the family and defending marriage easier for politicians. Politicians tend to follow. Very, very rarely are they leaders who actually lead by example. And so in Croatia, we've seen this example that the politicians have followed and are, whether they like it or not, at least on the right, are defending marriage. So ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, I would say one final point, and it's the inspiration that I get from many people who were willing to suffer under communism. The persecution that we face today and the unpleasantness sometimes in politics is nothing compared to what happened to people who were opposed to communism in Central Europe, Eastern Europe, the former Soviet Union. We have countless martyrs who will never be known, who suffered and died for what they believed in. And we should take inspiration from this. John Paul II, St. John Paul II, is someone that I greatly admired growing up, and he led by example. He knew the weakness of these ideologies, and without him, I think it would be difficult to imagine the collapse of communism, but he succeeded. And we're living in a free country. Many of our countries in Central and Eastern Europe, no one could have imagined that this happened. The intellectuals were not writing textbooks in the late 80s, predicting what would happen after communism would collapse. There were no textbooks showing countries what to do after communism collapses. Most intellectuals believed that it was here to stay. So we don't know, in other words, what will happen tomorrow. We don't know, and it's like I said, definitely worth fighting for our culture, fighting for our nations, taking inspiration from others who have led and who have paid a heavy price for speaking the truth. In the end, evil can only spread if good people do nothing. I think that is a quote attributed to Edmund Burke. Evil can only spread if good people do nothing. And so it's an honor and a sign of hope that good people have convened here in Budapest. I thank the Hungarian hosts once again for their hospitality, and look forward to conversations with you till the end of tomorrow. Thank you very much.